Are we here? Are we live? Hold on. Making some last minute adjustments here to the stream. And we are good to go. All right, everybody, welcome in to the High Noon stream. I am Pugs Moran. I do this, just about every day, Monday through Friday, noon till whenever. I like to say noon until the news runs out. Sometimes that's about 2 o'clock, a couple hours, maybe, hour and a half, hour 40, whatever, I give you a nice little. Here's what the show is. High Noon is all about getting you prepped up for the day. Just, I give you all the stupid little stories that people are talking about. If it's a headline making news, I'll bring it to you. If it's a trending topic, I'll tell you why it's trending. We try to get you all briefed up just so you know a little bit about everything that's happening in the world today, on this day. I don't get into politics. We don't do this bill in Congress. I don't give a shit about that, and you shouldn't either. It is one of the cornerstones of this show that we just stop it with all that and just talk about everything else. I used to. Many of you know I did talk radio for almost 25 years. Good old fashioned American talk radio. When you didn't have to be like a dick, when you didn't have to just like actively exclude half the audience for their political ideology. So that's why I don't do that anymore. That's why we do this show. This show is about all the topics that we can talk about. Is the chat room working? It is. Hey, Jeff, how are you? We got a little bit, something not right. Something doesn't seem right. We've got like nobody in the chat room today. And let's see here. Is the chat room working? Because remember earlier in the week, the chat room wasn't working. Are you guys seeing each other? I want you guys to be able to see each other. Boy. Dustin. Okay, Dustin. Hey, Dustin. Hey, Joel. Hey, Michael. Hi, April. Jeff. Okay, we're going to say hi to everybody, I guess. Okay, so again, sorry. We do the show every Monday through Friday, noon till whenever. Then we do a second stream. It's called Pillow Talk. It's myself and James Parker, 9 o'clock. It's myself, James Parker. It's also E, the artist. He's been joining us lately. He hangs out with us. It's more conversational. We've been interviewing people recently, although we didn't last night, which I thought was nice. I want to do a couple of shows where it's just the three of us just talking about stuff. Hiccups. I tried like I did that thing that I was talking about yesterday where 15 minutes before the show, I'll start talking like it's the show to try and, fake the hiccups into coming early so that I get them out of the way before the show starts. I did that. And I thought it had worked until now. There is like a hiccup right here, and he is really. Hold on. You know what? I'm gonna try and beat him before he ever. Hold on. I'm gonna try and abort this hiccup. Hold on, before it even starts. I think that might have worked. All right. High Noon, Monday through Friday, noon to whenever, and then Pillow Talk. Those are the two shows that we do. So now let's start this one. How does this one work? Well, it works in a couple of stages. The first stage is I bring you all the news of the day. Or not all the news of the day. All of the historic events that has shaped this day. Whatever version of whatever year March the 8th was, we bring you the history of things that occurred on this day. Then we go into some birthdays. We talk about people who have been born on this day. We celebrate their contributions. And then, yes, we even go through a list of people who have passed. We mourn their passings or dance upon their graves. That's part of the fun of it. We try and figure that out. We talk about their lives, and then, there you go. After that, after we've done the history and the births and the deaths, then and only then, I don't know, at least for my money, I feel comfortable moving on and consuming whatever this edition, the 2023 edition of March the 8th will bring. That's the topics. We get into that. So let's get started. Here's how the show works. It is high noon. Did I say ninth day? I said ninth day like twice, right? Oh, geez. It's the 8th, right? It is. Okay. You guys, I've done that before. I've done that where I have prepped an entire show with the wrong date. And I mean, that only becomes a problem when I go into the histories of the day and the birthdays and all that stuff. But anyway, okay, so I need to be, you know what? I need to stop taking that for granted, that just the next page up on my page is going to be the day that it is. I should probably be a bit more diligent in my practices. High noon. It is the 8th day. It is, yes, 8 on that computer, 8 on that computer, 8 on that computer. It is 8. I am certain that is the 8th. It is high noon, the 8th day of March. It's the 67th day of the year. There are 298 days remaining until the end of the year. 298. Wait, wasn't yesterday 300? Oh my God, dude. I am so confused now. I have no idea what it is. It's the 8th. Okay, so let's just pretend. Who cares? Let's see. There are 298 days remaining until the end of the year. Let's go through the history of this day. On this day in 1782. All right, now this is going to be a tough one. This is one of the most complicated words thine eyes have ever laid upon. In Gnadenhutten. All right. Gnadenhutten. All right, here's how it's spelled. I'll tell you how it's spelled. Gnadenhutten. Gnadenhutten. It's a town in Ohio. Anyway, on this day in 1782, they slaughtered a whole bunch of Christian Indians who had assimilated into their society. Okay, so these Indians in Gnadenhutten, Ohio in 1782, there were some Indians that, they came in from the woods and they were hanging out in the towns, the little towns that were, building up, and they were selling beads or whatever. And yeah, they got converted to Christianity and they were starting to assimilate. So, but a bunch of bad Indians that didn't assimilate, they had raided a bunch of towns around the area. So the good people of Gnadenhutten, Ohio, on this day in 1782, they just slaughtered all the Indians that were living in the town peacefully among them. They just slaughtered them, snuck up on them and slaughtered them. 96 Indians who had converted to Christianity are killed by citizens of Gnadenhutten and Pennsylvania militiamen. This in retaliation for raids carried out by other Indian tribes in the area. I mean, these are the ones that decided to go, okay, we're not going to fight you. We think this kind of sucks that you're just taking our land, but whatever. Okay, we can make this work. What kind of food you guys eat? These were those Indians, and those Indians got hatcheted up. Just let that be a lesson to all you other Indians. What? Don't try and play nice. Don't. You know what I mean? What is the message you're sending there? At least from the white man side. Of which I would have been on back then. From the white man side, you're saying, even if you try to assimilate and don't put up a fight and become a part of the greater culture and all, we're still going to kill you. On this day in 1917, it is International Women's Day. It is. That's a big player on this day. Today is a big player. International Women's, I'll tell you, I go through the Google Trends, and there's hundreds of them. And man, I got to say, out of the top 100 Google Trends, I would say a good 70 of them pertain on this day to International Women's Day or stories pertaining to that. It's crazy. On this day in 1917, International Women's Day protests in Petrograd, where's that? Russia, marked the beginning of the February Revolution, February 23rd in the Julian calendar. On this day in 1924, a mine disaster kills 172 coal miners near Castle Gate, Utah. Man, that's a rough way to go. Mine disaster, being buried alive in a coal mine. First of all, I don't want to work in no coal mine. I'd freak out. I'd lose my shit. I'm re-binging Justified. I don't know if any of you guys ever watched. There they are. Damn it! I thought I beat them. That one snuck right up. Oh, you bastards. Oh, they're coming fast. Hiccups. Hold on. Boy, this is a weird. Hiccups are weird. They came out of nowhere, man. Did you see that? I had no warrant. Usually I feel them. Fudge. Ah! I don't care. You know what today? You know what today is? In honor of International Women's Day, I'm just gonna hiccup. I'm just gonna keep moving through. On this on this day, and now I'm gonna giggle every time I hiccup. Because it makes no sense that it's in honor of International Women's Day. A 1924 mind. I'm watching Justified, and they do a lot of coal mining stuff in the show Justified. Oh man, does that job seem awful? The home life seems even worse, as depicted in Justified. That doesn't seem much better. So, I mean, it'd be one thing if you were doing like a really awful job, like a job nobody wants to do. It's dangerous. It's probably not good for your health. It's just incredibly laborious. It's hard work. It's coal mining, right? Okay, so you're doing that. So, but if you could do that and still have a house in the suburbs with an in-ground pool and 2 kids in college, right? You might make that trade. But that doesn't seem to be how it works for coal miners. It seems like they do the world's shittiest job and then go home to like the world's shittiest home life. Have you ever seen the way they live, like in Appalachian stuff? I don't know. If you've never seen Justified, you probably should. It's great. Let's see here. On this day in 1936, Daytona Beach, the Daytona Beach End Road Course, holds its first oval stock car race. So there you go. Happy birthday to you, Daytona Beach. On this day in 1950, the iconic Volkswagen Type 2 bus begins production. The Volkswagen bus, the Beetle is probably their most iconic, but the bus is right there with it. So like in the 1970s when I was a little kid, like hitchhiking was like, when I was a little kid, it's like, it was drilled into my head. Apparently hitchhiking was a thing. Doesn't seem to be much of a thing now, but back then it was a big thing. And hitchhiking was always like, as a child in the 70s, you were told hitchhiking is how you get murdered. Hitchhiking is how, whatever. You pick up a hitchhiker, the hitchhiker is a murderer. If you're hitchhiking, the guy that picks you up is a murderer. The world was filled with murderers as far as children were concerned in the 1970s. But I always thought about the Volkswagen bus as being sort of like the one I'd take a ride in. Like, I'm not going to take a ride in some like 1978, Dodge conversion van with a Molly Hatchet album cover painted on the side. Remember those vans? Remember when that was a thing? When cars had these like really tacky pieces of artwork splashed on the side, whether it was like a herd of stampeding horses through water or like some dude riding a horse with a giant sword, like a barbarian kind. Those were cool. I wouldn't get in one of those cars, but I might get in a Volkswagen van. What's the worst that could happen in a Volkswagen van, right? They're going to get you high, You might have some like just random sex with a stranger. I mean, like willingly, not like the other kind, not like in the Molly Hatchet van. That would probably be unwilling sex. And that ends with you being buried alive in the desert. I don't know. Anyway, I always thought Volkswagen vans were cool. I always thought they seemed like, those are good people. Those are good. Those are weird people, but they're good people. You know what the word I'm searching for? Harmless. Those are harmless people driving around in their Volkswagen vans. On this day, in 1979, Philips demonstrates the compact disc publicly for the first time. This is interesting because just last week we talked about the anniversary of the commercial release here in the United States of the compact disc. And that was in 1983. So here we have 1979, Philips, the first time they demonstrated it. 4 years. Took them 4 years to bring it to market. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? On this day in 1983, this falls under the heading of Cold War. While addressing a convention of evangelicals, U.S. President Ronald Reagan labels the Soviet Union an evil empire. Oh my God, y'all. That was a scandal. Oh, Wait, an evil empire. We're saying the quiet parts out loud now? Like, that was it, man. That was nobody. We hadn't talked that way about the Soviet Union. It was always very respectful, very, very, very following of diplomatic lines, and certain expectations were always adhered to. Evil empire? Whoa, now good thing that they're communists because they don't really believe in a good and evil kind of philosophy, but still, that was big stuff. Today, now, Trump calling Kim Jong-un, little rocket man, come get me, little rocket man. I'm saying that the temp on the discourse has seriously gone up since Ronald Reagan freaked the world out by calling the Russians, the Soviets, an evil empire. He did. He freaked the world out on this day in 1983. Like, what think about how stupid that is. I mean, maybe it's unfair for me to project the knowledge of today back on 1983, right? So I have years of what actually happened to inform my stance. But what were they afraid of in 1980? What was the world afraid of when Reagan called the Soviet Union the evil empire? What was the rest of the world afraid of? Because the rest of the world freaked out. They thought, that's it. Now we're going to war. Were they afraid that the Soviets would like that would make the Soviets launch missiles? Like, just being called a name? See, that seems so absurd by today's standards because we've seen nations in saber rattling as recently as yesterday be far more provocative. And the world of 2023 goes, whatever. The world of 1983 and the Cold War did not. Everything was a provocation to the end of the world. Different times. Anyway, on this day in 2014, in one of aviation's greatest mysteries, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, carrying a total of 239 people, disappears en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The fate of the flight remains unknown. I don't know what to tell you, folks. For a lot of people, they say that, they look at their lives, they look at their world in different things. Like, for some people, it's, I had a life that I saw the world through before the JFK assassination and then after the JFK. For other people, it's 9/11. There was the way I looked at the world, it completely changed after 9/11. I got to tell you, for me, it was this damn Malaysian airliner disappearing. This blew my mind. The day before this damn thing disappeared, if you had come to me and said, hey, Pugs, can a commercial airliner carrying all kinds of people just completely vanish in thin air and never be found again? I'd say, fuck no. Are you kidding me? We've got satellites. These things are tracked by beacons. They're in constant communication. We know where every plane in the sky is at all times. So no, there's, of course not. What are you, stupid? If they had released a movie the week before this plane disappeared, where a plane disappeared like this, we'd all go, well, it's a good thing that this is science fiction. This plane disappeared with a bunch of people on it, not in the middle of nowhere. I know with our Western view, we think of we're here, we got suburbs, we're all built up, we are where the people are. No, and everywhere else is like the middle of nowhere. This plane did not disappear in the middle of nowhere. It was over water, yes, but we're talking about the relative region. You know how many people are in China? This is not the middle of nowhere. Have you ever seen what a Malaysian city looks like? This is not the middle of nowhere. This plane just went, my God, what else do I just take for granted? Like, what else do I just think is... I'll tell you one thing, and this goes back to my dream. Some of you are longtime listeners. I have a dream of trying to figure out how to rob a bank perfectly and not get caught. I mean, chances are slim that I'll ever go through with it, but I obsess on how to how to create the perfect bank robbery. Because I don't know, I just think in a pinch, if you needed like a couple grand, you could probably rob a bank and get away with it if you're only going for like a couple grand. Anyway, I mean, the prohibitive thinking in this whole thing is that it's a bank, so it's federal, so it really doesn't matter how much I get. I'm still going to jail for a long time either way. So yeah. So anyway, I was talking about things that I think like I don't think right now that it's possible to. Never mind. That's a bad example. It's a bad example. This damn plane disappeared off radar, packed with a bunch of people. And this wasn't one of these airlines where there's chickens and goats in the aisles and, people are smoking and, there's card games going on and cockfights back in the rear. None of that. That's not what this was a real airline with real people, business people, families going on vacation. It was traveling between a major city and a major city. It was going to Beijing. I mean, there were real people on this plane. What do you mean real people? Well, you know what I'm saying. Oh, I'm joking. I was being glib. All people are real, but I'm talking about what I'm trying to say is that this very easily could have been a flight between Dallas and Bangor, Maine, or Boston, something like that. It's just amazing. You guys, that was how many years ago now? This Malaysian Airliners, it disappeared on this day in 2014. So 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. We've all just moved on. And we all still just get in planes. When you get in planes, do you now, every time you sit down, go, okay, so now I know it's possible. I can just disappear forever. I mean, not even plane crash is one thing. You're worried about that. You're worried about plane crashes. You're worried about hijackings. You're worried about all these kinds of things. But at least you know that the world's going to know what happened to you, right? You think, right? No, not the Malaysian people. Their families going, I don't know. We don't know. Pieces that have washed up like all over. Okay, so fine. Find me the damn black box. Find me some people strapped to sea. I just need to know what happened to this damn thing. Otherwise, aliens. All right. On this day in 2018, the first Orat March, a social political demonstration, was being held. It's see, look at this, another International Women's Day thing. This one in Karachi, Pakistan. It was like the big one when the women did it in Karachi, Pakistan. Remember that? On this day in 2021, International Women's Day marches in Mexico become violent, with 62 police officers and 19 civilians injured in Mexico City alone. Violent cops. The cops turned on the women. The cops, it was all their wives. The cops were all in dirty uniforms and they're hungry. Make me dinner. Births. Let's do some births. On this day in 1841, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., an American lawyer and jurist, was born. Oliver, I don't know anything. I know Oliver Wendell Holmes is like an important, lawyer in American history. He was the guy. Well, look at you. You're just a little Oliver Wendell Holmes, aren't you? Like that kind of thing. I know him because here's entirely why I know who Oliver Wendell Holmes is, because of the show Green Acres. Because Oliver Douglas was named Oliver Wendell Douglas. He was named after Oliver Wendell Holmes. Remember Oliver Douglas? Remember Green Acres? Remember with Lisa and Oliver? It was Oliver, Lisa. That's whenever I think of that show. That's Oliver, Lisa. He would say it like that. She would say it like that. But he was named after Oliver Wendell Holmes, born on this day in 1841. Born on this day in 1912, Preston Smith, American businessman and politician. He only gets a mention because he was governor of Texas. I don't know who he is. I don't know. Born on this day in 1921, Alan Hale Jr., American actor and restaurateur. He was the skipper from Gilligan's Island. You want to know what's awesome about the skipper from Gilligan's Island? So, like after Gilligan's Island, for some reason, like all of the people associated with Gilligan's Island, because Gilligan's Island was one of the first shows to be really saturated in syndication. It was everywhere. So after Gilligan's Island, which was a very popular show, and then even more popular in syndication, the actors couldn't get worked. They called it being Gilligan, and it most specifically pertained to Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, who couldn't get work in anything else. And, over the years, the people associated with Gilligan's Island, Marianne, Ginger, the professor, I guess Jim Backus still worked, but he was established before Gilligan's Island. So, maybe that works. But Alan Hale did it right, man. You know what Alan Hale did? Alan Hale opened up seafood restaurants I think they were called like the Skippers or something. He like leaned into it, and people could go to his seafood restaurants. And when he was there, he wore the skipper outfit. Alan Hale gets it, leans into it. Oh, isn't that beneath him? No, it's not beneath him. You want to know why? Because Alan Hale has a beautiful house in the hills, a couple kids in college. Alan Hale knew what he was doing. You show up, if you're driving down the road, you're in California, you're like, oh, look at that, the Skipper Seafood Restaurant, and it's got like, the minnow on the sign or whatever. When you go in, you want to see Alan Hale dressed as a skipper. You don't want to see Alan Hale in a sports coat and a t-shirt sitting at the bar, like that. You see that a lot with football players and stuff that own restaurants. And maybe you go and maybe they're there, but they're just, you want the skipper to come greet you. And that's what he did. Alan Hale was awesome. Born on this day in 1942, Dick Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite White Sox players of all time. 1974 American League Most Valuable Player. He smoked in the dugout. Dick Allen used to smoke in the dugout. The great Dick Allen. Born on this day in 1945, Mickey Dolenz. He was a monkey, don't you know? I got any hot takes on Mickey Dolenz? No, but do you remember, like, in the late 80s, Mickey Dolenz' daughter, Amy Dolenz, tried to be an actress? And she was in that movie with, what was the movie that she was in where they tried to make her a star? She was in that movie where Tony Danza played her father, and she was his teen daughter, and the movie was called She's Out of Control. That's what it's called. It was called She's Out of Control, and it was starring Amy Dolenz. She was hot. That's all I remember. I just remember going, she was hot. Mickey Dolenz' daughter's hot. It was all right because I was like 17, but yeah, she was hot. And she was probably like 20, so, I mean, I'm not saying now. I'm just saying, okay, I looked at the camera and I said, it's Mickey Dolenz' birthday. Do I have any Mickey Dolenz hot takes? And that's what I gave you. Don't hold it against me. This is what I do here. Jimmy Rice, born on this day in 1953. Shout out to all my baseball old heads. Jimmy Rice, Hall of Famer, Boston Red Sox. Oh, he was good, man. The older I get, the more I realize, like my 13-year-old son. Like, you ask my 13-year-old son, like, who's the greatest wide receiver or who's the greatest player in football history? Deebo Samuel. Yeah, you know what I mean? He's 13. Like, he has the older I get, I like think back about the super athletes, or the people who at least I thought were super athletes when I was a kid. Like a Jim Rice. Jim Rice is a great example. Dick Allen, who we talked about, 1974 American League MVP, Dick Allen. These guys were superstars in their time. But would they suck today? Like, would they suck? Or would they even be? Because when I look at a picture of, I just said, Dick Allen celebrating a birthday today. Well, not really, because I think he's dead. He is dead. Like, Dick Allen was an MVP in 1974. And Jim Rice is a Hall of Famer. But when you look at their bodies, Dick Allen, I talked about him smoking in the dugout. I mean, okay, so like Dick Allen is like a White Sox slugger. So a White Sox slugger now is Luis Robert. If you were to put Luis Robert next to Dick Allen, even if they were both the same age, you'd be like, oh, is this your dad? They just didn't. I mean, like, the modern ball player is 0% body fat and just a beast of a 365 day a year machine. Whereas guys back then were selling insurance in the offseason. You know what I mean? It's just weird. I don't know. Anyway, Jim Rice, happy birthday to you. Born on this day in 1958, Gary Newman. Here in my car, in cars, right? Isn't that him? I think so. Born on this day in 1959. I might be wrong. Lester Holt. Lester Holt was born on this day in 1959. Lester Holt. We Chicagoans, we know Lester Holt. Lester Holt, before he became like a big time NBC lead anchor guy, Lester Holt was with Linda McLennan, right? Lester and Linda, CBS, the CBS 10 p.m. news with Lester and Linda for years. I always liked Lester Holt. Happy birthday to you, Lester Holt. Born on this day in 1959, Aidan Quinn, Irish-American actor. I can't really name anything that he's been in, but I know that I like him. Born on this day in 1961, Cameron Manheim, actress. Okay, so here's what I'll say about Cameron Manheim. I don't know who she is. She was on a show that was popular like 25 years ago. And I remember, here's what I remember about Cameron Manheim, because I remember thinking at the time, that's awesome. Good for her. She was celebrated because, like, okay, so like a typical headline would be Cameron Manheim proves you don't have to be a size 0 to succeed in Hollywood. You know, she was celebrated as, look at Hollywood, basically, Hollywood PR machinery patting themselves on the back for putting a heavyset woman on TV. That was the whole thing. And I thought that was great. And I thought she was a wonderful personality. I've seen her on a couple of talk shows. I'm like, oh, isn't she fun? I never saw the show she was on. I don't know what show she was on. Was it Grey's Anatomy or something like that? Boston Legal, something like that. I don't know. One of those shows I never watched that people like that I recognize that are probably pretty good, but I just don't have time for them. Cameron Manheim proves Hollywood, whatever. Cameron Manheim ain't done nothing since then. Like, okay, so she got cast in a role that required a woman not to be smoking hot. It didn't mean that Hollywood had suddenly changed their entire perspective on female beauty. It wasn't like Hollywood was suddenly going, I think that I almost said something that I would be uncomfortable saying in the year 2023. So I'm going to bite my tongue. Anyway, I'm just saying, Cameron Manheim, I think Hollywood maybe wasn't exactly, Hollywood's got to make, heavy set Cameron Manheim, who was wonderful. Like I said, the only time I ever saw her was in interviews. And I thought she was great in interviews. Like I know who she is, but she ain't done nothing. Cameron Manheim ain't done nothing. Hollywood still ain't casting heavyset women for roles. They ain't making stars out of women that the producers don't want to have sex with. And yeah, that's still going on. Come on. I heard all right, moving on. We're still in birthdays. I'm sorry. Freddie Prinze Jr., born on this day in 1976. Freddie Prinze Jr., the son of Freddie Prinze. He couldn't have known his father for very long, right? Not at all. Like, Freddie Prinze died around 1976. Huh. Okay. Born on this day also in 1976. Look at this. Umbilical cousins. The first umbilical cousins of the day. Probably the only ones. Born on this day in 1976. Hines Ward, Korean-American football player. Umbilical cousins with Freddie Prinze Jr. Hines Ward. Love Hines Ward. Who doesn't like Hines Ward, right? He's great. Born on this day in 1977. James Van Der Beek, American actor. The Beak. He's Dawson's Creek, right? See, again, I'm showing my age because when Dawson's Creek came out, I was like in my early mid-20s, and Dawson's Creek was for like high school kids. So I was like, nah. So I have zero knowledge of Dawson's Creek other than like Katie Holmes was and still is pretty great. All right. Born on this day in 1982, Kat Von D. Kat Von D, American tattoo artist and model. I've had occasion to socialize with Kat Von D on a couple of different times. Interviewed her twice when we were out in LA for the Grammys. Kat Von D is fine. Here's what I'll say about Kat Von D. She says fuck and dude a lot. Like just in casual conversation. It's like, because I don't swear. Like if I'm in casual conversation with you somewhere, I don't swear. I don't mind that you do. I don't mind that you do. It's a character thing. And not like that's bad character, good character. I mean, it informs your overall character. And that is not to say that like I judge people based on whether they say dude. I don't. I just think it's funny, and I think maybe it makes me like you more. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Who are you to try and figure out what's going on in my mind? All I'm saying is the birthday girl, Kat Von D, says fuck and dude a lot. Just a lot. But not aggressively. I can tell you it wasn't like, fuck, dude. It wasn't like that. It was more like, fuck. And dude. It was more like that. It wasn't the aggressive. It was more. All right, let's do some deaths. Some people died on this day. Millard Fillmore died on this day in 1874. He was a president of the United States. A lesser one, a spare president. Like one that, if you had to, like, for $1 million, name all the presidents, you have 10 minutes. And, you would sit there and there'd be like 5 or 6 at the end that you would just have no fucking shot at. And Millard Fillmore would be one of them. He'd be one of them in there that you'd be like, I forgot about that dude. Well, he died on this day in 1874. Dead on this day in 1973, Ron Pigpen McKernan. For all you deadheads out there, he was the original keyboardist of the Grateful Dead. Pigpen. I'm guessing that had something to do with hygiene, the whole dirty hippie thing. Yeah. So he died. Pigpen died. I've seen a couple of documentaries on the Grateful Dead and all that stuff. So just to be clear, my position on the Grateful Dead is this. I'm not really all that familiar with a bunch of their stuff. Like I know some Dead songs. Like here's what I know. I know enough of the Dead that if a song came on that I didn't recognize, I could probably go, this is the Dead, right? Like I know their sound. I don't really have anything against the members of the Grateful Dead. They seem like dudes. You know, they seem like good dudes. They seem fine. They seem, especially the one that's left. You know, Bob Weir, right? He seems pretty cool. It's the fans. It's the Grateful Dead fans that have kept me away from the Grateful Dead for so long. Hey. The Grateful Dead fans are just so, I just can't, I don't want to be around that. There's a weird energy there. And although I usually embrace weird energy, that's just like a big wave of weird energy. It's too much at once. I just can't take it. So anyway, so I know a little bit. I love the documentaries and all that. And I watched the thing that was about this guy, Pigpen. And he died in a very interesting way on this day. In 1973, Ron Pigpen McKernan of the Grateful Dead we're talking about. So he was like a terrible alcoholic. And they were all doing, various forms of drugs and all that kind of stuff. But his big problem was alcoholism. And he basically drank himself by the mid-20s. He was like incapable of being an everyday player in a band as big as the Grateful Dead. So he had already, in like probably 7 years of just insane San Francisco, late 60s, early 70s living, basically just destroyed everything. And then he developed a disease like you would think because of his reputation and the way he lived that he would have died, found in a bathtub, right? Something like that. No, he actually, because of his chronic alcoholism, at 26, by the way, he basically gave himself all these diseases and he died. The band kept trying to keep him on stage. Like they'd say, come on out with us. And he was like, nah. And then finally he couldn't do it anymore. And he completely removed himself from the entire band and like moved away and just died alone. He said he didn't want them to see him die. There you go. Ron Pigpen McKernan, keyboardist, original founding member of the Grateful Dead. Actually, I'm not sure he's a founding member. I don't know. Dead on this day in 1998, Ray Nitschke. He's a Packer, but I give him the respect he deserves. Ray Nitschke, one of the great linebackers of all time. Born on dead on this day. Yeah. Dead on this day in 1999. The real one, the real time. This is the real time he died. Joe DiMaggio. Joe, Mr. Coffee. Oh, but don't call him Mr. Coffee. If you call Mr. The stories were that if you went up to Joe DiMaggio and were like, hey, Mr. Coffee, because he did in the 70s and 80s, he did commercials for the Mr. Coffee brand coffee maker. I'm Joe DiMaggio, and every morning I wake up and I drink my Mr. Coffee. So for years, he would go out in public and people would be like, hey, Mr. Coffee. And Joe DiMaggio would just fucking simmer. He hated it. He was like, man, first of all, dude, and I don't think that this is how Joe DiMaggio talked, but this is my interpretation of Joe DiMaggio. He was like, man, first of all, dude, Mr. Coffee is the product, okay? It is clear that I am introduced in the beginning of the commercial as Joe DiMaggio. I am not Mr. Coffee. So he used to get mad about that. Although I do think at some point, because like in my mind, I remember him calling himself Mr. Coffee. I don't know, whatever, but he apparently didn't like it. And he died on this day in 1999. And I say this is the real time he died because like a year earlier, somebody on the floor of the United States Congress got an erroneous report that Joe DiMaggio had passed. So he got up on the floor of the Congress and gave this eulogy for Joe DiMaggio. And Joe DiMaggio was apparently at home in bed. And he's watching it or whatever. I don't know. That's the story. I can't imagine Joe DiMaggio was watching C-SPAN on his deathbed. I mean, my God, the man had sex with Marilyn Monroe. That is not how he's going out. Anyway. Yeah, so they erroneously reported Joe DiMaggio's death. News, like there were tributes, the 5 and finally tonight, the passing of an American icon. Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper, passed away today in his Florida home at the age of. And then, they had to we would like to correct something. Apparently, Joe DiMaggio is not dead. We're sorry, Joe. But he did die. He actually did die on this day in 1999. On this day in 2015, Sam Simon, American director, producer, and screenwriter. Sam Simon, one of the greats of our time. Can't watch an episode of The Simpsons without seeing old Sam Simon's name pop up right there in front of you. Sam Simon, brilliant producer, brilliant writer, so great. Dead on this day in 2016, another one, so great. George Martin, English composer, conductor, and producer. George Martin, of course, most famous for being the producer of the Beatles and sticking with the Beatles through all of their growth and shepherding them through everything from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Helter Skelter. I mean, if you're into music or if you're a producer and you're looking for range, if you look at just the stuff that George Martin did with the Beatles from the very first recording to the very last recording, holy cow, is that range. George Martin did something really cool. After the Beatles broke up, he kind of realized, and you have to understand, George Martin was a producer of classical music for a decade before he met the Beatles. The Beatles were signed to a record label that was almost exclusively classical music. And George Martin was the producer they were assigned to work with. George Martin showing up in a suit and tie. You've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos from the old, documentaries about the Beatles' early days. So he was like this, classical music guy who then had to figure out how to work with this jingle jangly, I'm your boyfriend kind of pop group. And man, what they did was great. So when the Beatles broke up, George Martin kind of realized, he's like, I'm like at a level in this producing game where who am I going to work with that's going to top Sgt. What project am I going to work on in the next year that's going to beat Sgt. Pepper? You know what I mean? That's kind of like how he looked at it. So George Martin bought an island in Aruba or something and just put a recording studio there and just hung out a shingle and said, hey, anybody that wants to record with me, if I want to record with you, come to my Caribbean island. There's a great documentary called Under the Sun, which is about what George Martin did after the Beatles and all of the people. I mean, everybody, man. Everybody from Fleetwood Mac to the Police. I mean, everybody went to George Martin's island to record at his studio. It's a pretty cool documentary. Let's see here. Dead on this day in 2019, Marshall Brodeen. Do you guys remember Marshall Brodeen, TV Magic? Marshall Brodeen was, hi kids, I'm Marshall Brodeen, and will you want to learn magic? He did all that stuff. And then he'd sell you a deck of cards on TV. For me growing up though, Marshall Brodeen, the lounge guy, Marshall Brodeen in the TV commercials for TV Magic was just a magician. He was wearing a tuxedo and he looked normal and he looked like a normal guy. But Marshall Brodeen, to the rest of us, especially those of us who watched the Bozo show in Chicago, he was Wizzo. Duty. He was Wizzo the Wizard on the Bozo Circus. And he did not look like the Marshall Brodeen from TV Magic. He died on this day in 2019. Dead on this day in 2020, Max von Sydow, Swedish actor. He's done everything. Max von Sydow he's done everything. I couldn't name one damn thing that Max von Sydow did, but he did a lot and he turns up in a lot of stuff and you go, that's that Max von Sydow. He died on this day in 2020. All right, do we feel like we understand what's been going on in the world today? Do we feel like we've got a good hold on the historical events that took place on this edition or on previous editions of March the 8th? I think we do. Let's get into what the topics are for today. Here's everything that's trending, the headlines, the hot topics, the current events, whatever it is that people are buzzing about today. I'm going to run through them right now. It's International Women's Day. As I said, that is just dominating the trends. International Women's Day. Ladies, I hope you have something special ready to whip up for your husband when he comes home from work in celebration of International Women's Day, because your man's going to be hungry, darling. Get in the kitchen. No, I'm kidding, of course. International Women's Day. Okay, so here, I'll give you a little, okay, so every Maybe I can do this every day. Every day I'll do a rant about women on International Women's Day. So here's a little rant I can do. So a couple of days back, I was talking to my friend on the phone. It was like one of those, it was like 11 o'clock. And I think, actually, okay. So she was a little drunk. She was like, she had been out with her friends and, now she's back. So we're just talking. She's a friend of mine. And, she says that she thinks that she's got to stop being friends with this one girl, like one of her friends. She's not gonna be friends with this girl anymore. And I'm like, well, why? What's going on? She's like, well, we don't really have anything in common. It's like, and I'm like, but you've been friends with this girl for like 15 years since college, and now you work at the same company, and now you're just like, that's going to be weird. Like, you're not best friends, but you're friends. You like go out on Friday nights and stuff like that. Neither of them are married. And she says, we just have nothing in common. And that made me think. And I said to her on International Women's Month, it was International Women's Month. And I said to her, I go, I have two best friends, two people that I like lean on the most. Three, but the third one doesn't really fit into this because we actually have something in common. My two best friends, I don't have anything in common with. E is like one of my best friends. We don't have anything tangible in common. He likes the Buffalo Bills. I hate the Buffalo Bills. He hates the Bears. He hates all my sports teams. But I guess maybe sports is the thing that we have in common. But you know what we have in common? And this is what I said to her. I go, when I was telling her that I don't have anything in common with my friends. And she's like, well, I'm going to break up with my friend. I'm not going to be friends with her anymore. We don't have anything in common. We have humanity in common. Like, regardless of whether or not, or like my other buddy, Aaron, regardless of what we lack in common as far as like tangible things, like I like strawberry ice cream, they like mint chocolate chip. That shit doesn't matter. We have kind of like humanity in common. You know what I mean? Like that's how I think guys connect. Like guys are either dudes, they see the world the same way and they have the same vibe about humanity and how to treat people and all that and same outlook, more so than just like, she just, all she does is, here's one of her complaints. She talks about Lululemon too much. Okay, there you go. That's my International Women's Day rant. That's just a little conversation I had with a woman recently about why she wants to dump her friend because she talks about Lululemon too much and she doesn't think they have much in common, which made me think about the difference between male friends and female friends. I don't have anything in common with any of my male friends. My closest male friends, the people I look at like brothers, very little in common with. I'll tell you something. I was thinking about this the other day. Me and he's like my brother. He is like my brother. We've been through it. I don't think we like the same comedy. I don't think we think the same things are funny. Look at that. Just like a very basic thing, a connective tissue thing. I don't think we find the same things funny, me and he. I don't know. And I've sort of, I'll go into that more because I want to confront him about it tonight on Pugs and Parker. But, so look at that. You would think like, you don't think the same things are funny. You guys aren't compatible. No, we're like super compatible. We're like super thick as thieves, and she's going to break up with a friend of like 15 years because she talks about Lululemon too much. Happy International Women's Day. Maybe tomorrow I'll have another woman's rant. I don't know. France is trending. I don't know if you saw this. France got some problems. They got some labor issues. They are striking all across France. I don't know if the cops are. Cops are probably just out there beating ass. You got the transit workers striking. You got the garbage workers striking. I don't know what else is going on, but it's crazy. They're striking. What are they striking for? Oh, yeah. Here's what they're striking for. Had to think about it. So in France, you get to retire at 62 years old with full benefits. Yeah, full pension, whatever. You're a French citizen. We're going to take care of you. You've worked enough. All right, you're 62. You can be done. Which by American standards seems nice because I think our mandatory was 65, but aren't we going up to 70 or something? It's going to be 70. whatever. In France, it's 62. Macron is trying to raise it to 64, and that's why the people are rioting. The people are rioting because there is a plan to sort of help, because, just like any big, giant, bloated bureaucracy, France, not unlike the United States, they're having some problems looking at the next generations and who they got to take care of as far as their, pensions and all that kind of stuff. And they're looking at it and they're coming up short. So, okay, let's make people work 2 years longer. That'll help the problem. That'll solve the problem. People in France are like, nope, 64. Jesus. If they knew about 70 here in the United States, imagine what would happen. Mexico is trending because apparently, well, we'll get into the other thing. The U.S. is urging spring breakers this spring break to not go to Mexico. Just don't go to Mexico. Just don't go. And that's probably good, because spring breakers go to stupid Mexico. Like, there's two Mexicos. There's stupid Mexico, and then there's Cancun. Then there's places like that where that's not stupid Mexico. That's tourist Mexico. And you can have a wonderful time in tourist Mexico. Tourist Mexico is amazing. But spring breakers are on budgets. And a lot of times they're just driving across the border. They're looking for cheap places to drink. They're looking for places that'll let them drink because they're not of legal age in the United States. So spring breakers go into stupid Mexico. And by stupid Mexico, I mean like Matamoros, Tijuana, where they're coming in from Southern California or wherever. Ugh. Thousands of California and Texas students are expected to pour across the borders next month, but the State Department is warning against it. With spring break less than a month away, how is that a deal? My kid's on spring break now. My kid Plano is on spring break now. With spring break less than a month away, the U.S. Department of State is warning travelers to avoid Mexico due to current risks of kidnappings and homicides. All right. Avoid. Look, here's what I would say. If you were telling me you're going to Acapulco this weekend, I'd be like, have fun. That's going to be awesome. Because it is. And you are gonna have fun. But, don't. If your kid's like, we're going into Mexico through Brownsville. No, don't be doing that. There's too much weird shit happening just across the border now. Too many. It's just not a good time. I mean, luckily my kid's 13 and he's still going to, Disneyland with his mom and stepdad. So yeah, I don't have to worry about him loading up the car with his buddies and going into Mexico, at least for another 4 years or so. Okay, so this is all in response to the kidnapping that took place. We've been following that story. 4 people from North Carolina drive from North Carolina across the border there into Matamoros. They're surrounded by armed gunmen. They are taken out of their car and kidnapped in broad daylight. Everybody sees it, thrown into other cars. His car speeds off. Days later, this happened on Friday. On Tuesday, police, federales, or whatever, found the kidnapping victims. They found 2 alive, although 1 had gunshot wounds, and 2 dead. And they found them in a shack. So that's what we know. What we know about the Americans kidnapped in Mexico. Let's see. Let's go through this. Okay, the kidnapping. The 4 Americans, here are their names: Eric James Williams, Zindell Brown, and then 2 cousins, Latavia Tay McGee and Shaid Woodward. They drove Friday morning into Matamoros, Mexico. Shortly after crossing, unidentified gunmen fired upon the passengers in the vehicle and then put the 4 Americans in another car and fled. Irving Barrios, the Attorney General of Tamaulipas, said the Americans were not directly targeted, and it appears that it was all a misunderstanding. Okay, so this is what's coming from the government, the Mexican government. They weren't targeted, and it was just a misunderstanding. Now, that's very convenient, because if it does turn out that the crime is so bad that the Mexican government is like, crime on that side of the border, get out of so bad that now it's risking the lives and the safety of American people. Now the Mexican government's got to answer to the United States government. That's a problem. So I can see exactly why the Mexican government would say, The Americans were not targeted, and this was all just a big misunderstanding. Can we all just move on? I mean, that sounds like it's the position of the Mexican government. Mexican investigators think the kidnappers may have wrongly believed that the Americans were rival human traffickers. A source close to the investigation told ABC News. Here's how the rescue went down. Eric Williams and Tay McGee survived the kidnapping. So that's one of the two dudes and one of the two female cousins. Williams and Tay McGee survived the kidnapping. They were found Tuesday morning in a wooden house in La Guana, I can't say that, outside Matamoros. One of the deceased was also found inside the house, and a second was found outside the house. So remember, this was two dudes and then two cousins, two chick cousins. One of the dudes survived, although he's got a bunch of gunshot wounds in his legs, and one of the cousins survived. There's no report on what her injuries are. I still don't know what's going on here. I still think that there might have been some kind of, look, one of these girls wants to go to Mexico to get like her tummy stapled. Why are the other dudes going? Why? I mean, I don't know. I just, there's more to this story. I need to see more. I need to see more. It's a terrible thing that happened. It's scary. But don't go into Mexico through Matamoros. Enter through the Cancun airport. I think that's probably the best way to go experience Mexico anyway. They do a wonderful job for tourists. They really sort of bring you the history and the grandiosity of, old Mexico. Just go to Cancun and Acapulco. Seriously. Oklahoma weed. We talked about this yesterday. Oklahoma, they voted yesterday on whether or not to legalize recreational use of marijuana in the state of Oklahoma, which, from my perspective, would have been a really good and smart way to have a successful weed market in your state, especially one that's as insane as the Oklahoma weed market. Okay, so I don't know if you guys understand this or not. So last night there was a referendum on a ballot. It was only a single referendum vote. Okay, so it's not like there were nobody else voting, nobody else was running for anything. It was just a single referendum vote on the issue of whether or not to legalize recreational marijuana in Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma, a couple of years back, they legalized medical marijuana. We'll get to that in a moment. So the ballot initiative, the referendum failed. It failed. The people in Oklahoma said, no, we're not going to blurp, 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 blurp. So there you go. But a lot of people from the, pro-legalization, they kind of figured it was going to fail because it was a single issue vote. It was just, if this had been on the ballot during, say, a presidential election, there would have been a much higher turnout. There would have been much more people making their voices heard on this. People just simply did not care enough to come out to the polls and wait in line just to vote. Well, I guess there wouldn't even be any lines. So the turnout was low. It was just, Anyway, they said no. Now, here's the problem with the Oklahoma weed market as compared to other places, okay? Because other places, everywhere else, it's booming. Everywhere else, people are making money hand over fist. Oklahoma is trying to figure out what they are. What they did was, when they legalized medical marijuana in Oklahoma, they legalized it in the most sweepingly liberal way possible. They made it medical, sure. But, I mean, when you look at the way when Illinois made medical marijuana legal, you had to not only have pre-existing conditions, but you had to be almost terminal. If you weren't like dying of like stage 4 cancer, you couldn't get weed with a medical card in Illinois. It was very restrictive. Now, California was the opposite of what Illinois did with their medical. Illinois had heavy restrictions on medical. California had almost no restrictions on medical. As a matter of fact, California had a doctor sitting at a desk in the waiting room of the dispensary so that people could get a prescription right there before they walked into the dispensary to buy. That's crazy. So when I say Oklahoma, when they legalized medicinal marijuana, they went crazy in the liberal direction. First of all, they had no cap on the amount of licenses to grow or to dispense in the state. Meaning, like in Illinois, they said we're only going to issue 1,000 licenses. Not in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, they said, nah, we're just going to issue as many as possible. In Illinois, it would have cost you millions of dollars to even get in line for one of those 1,000 licenses. Why? Because they're keeping the market small. They're making sure that the market can thrive so it's not flooded. In Oklahoma, it cost you $2,500. That's it. If you had $2,500 and you wanted a grow license in Oklahoma, they gave you one. That's it. That's all it took. And then if you wanted to buy medical marijuana in the state of Oklahoma, if you wanted, you had to go see a doctor, right? Well, guess what? There were no preconditions. There were no conditions required to get a medical marijuana card in Oklahoma, which means anybody could walk into any doctor and just say, I want a medical marijuana card. And they say, what's wrong? And you just be like, I don't know. I feel a little stressed out sometimes. And they would give you so super liberal, super easy. If you're a resident of Oklahoma and you want to smoke marijuana legally, there is nothing stopping you. I mean, you could be, other than the step that you have to go to a doctor and you have to get a prescription and you have to hope that this is one of those doctors who's cool with giving prescriptions. And by the way, that's an entire industry now in Oklahoma. Shady ass doctors who just, their primary business is for $100 in a doctor visit. They'll write you a prescription for medical marijuana. So they said no to recreational. So essentially what the Oklahoma voters said yesterday was no to eliminating that step where you have to go to a doctor. Because you can get one if you go to, doctors are just giving them out. It's not restrictive at all. You can get it. You just have to go to the doctor. The problem with Oklahoma's weed market right now is, as I said, everybody got a grow license. So they are just lousy with people growing weed. It is easy to get a medical license, so that's good. But it would be, basically they have too much weed in Oklahoma. They have too many people who are growing. They have too many dispensaries. I was reading a story in Politico the other day that's talked about a town with 40,000 people in it in Oklahoma. This town had 30 dispensaries and 20 grow farms. Just in one Oklahoma town, 30 dispensaries. That's like vape shops. You ever seen how many vape shops there are? Like in that small town, it's crazy. So the hope was that when they legalized it recreationally, people who would otherwise, probably go into a store and, they might buy some weed or whatever, but they just don't want to go to a doctor. They don't want to be on any list. They don't want, any sort of government accounting of the fact that they have this illicit drug. Not an illicit drug, not anymore. But you know what I'm saying? So you make it legal, you make it recreationally legal, and then, you solve the problem of this glut of marijuana because you gave out too many grow licenses. So there's too much weed. The market has crashed. Weed is super cheap and it's going bad. And if they had legalized it for rec, another thing would have occurred. People in surrounding states would then be able to travel into Oklahoma or across the border and buy some weed. And then what? If they're going to take it back to their states on their own, hey, that sounds like a problem for the state they're traveling back into. But that was also going to solve this problem. But for some reason, the Oklahoma people said, nope. There is currently a moratorium in Oklahoma on weed licenses. Can't get any more. They did this, what was it? I don't know how recently it was. But they finally said, okay, stop. We are killing this market. Because they didn't create the market the way Colorado did. Colorado regulated the beginning of the market so that competition would grow, so that you had multiple people. Colorado, they didn't do any, or in Oklahoma, they didn't do any of that. They just went, if you got $2,500, you can grow pot legally now and then sell it to medical dispensaries. I don't know. It's crazy. And they've set themselves back. Michael Irvin is trending. Michael Irvin is trending today. The old playmaker. Okay, so do we know what's going on with Michael Irvin? So back at the Super Bowl, he got sent home by, I don't know if it's ESPN or NFL Network, one of those two, whatever he was working for. He got sent home from the Super Bowl and knocked off TV, not allowed to be on TV, suspended from his TV because of an incident that apparently occurred in the lobby of the Marriott there in Arizona. Now, the day that he was sent home and the story broke, it said that Michael Irvin had done something inappropriate to a female in the lobby of the Marriott, and that there was video that had been captured. And that this is the original story, and that ESPN had seen the video. And in their estimation, Michael Irvin should not appear during their Super Bowl telecasts, and they'll do their own investigation. Michael Irvin still hasn't been back on TV. So that was months ago. That was Super Bowl time. So a month ago, maybe. Michael Irvin has been saying, let's release the video. Let's release the video. Let's release the video. I don't know what happened here. In the beginning, it sounded like Michael Irvin, who, probably grabbed some woman's butt or something, or said, hey, baby, come up to my room. But I don't know if that's the case now. Michael Irvin had a press conference today. He is suing Marriott for $100 million. Michael Irvin has seen the video, and his attorney has seen the video. And if you believe the press conference today, they are begging Marriott to allow them to release the video. Michael Irvin and his attorney want everyone to see this video that has kept Michael Irvin. Basically, Michael Irvin had this little interaction with this woman in the lobby, and we don't know what that interaction entailed. And then he went up to his hotel room and climbed into bed. A couple of minutes later, knock on the door. It's security. Hotel is kicking Michael Irvin out of the hotel. So those were all things that we learned the day after when the story broke. And that sounds bad. That's, oh my God, what did Michael Irvin do? What did Michael Irvin do? Well, it's been a month, and we still don't know what Michael Irvin did. And Michael Irvin is still saying, I didn't do nothing, and I've seen the video, and you got nothing, and now you're going to give me $100 million because you've embarrassed me. I don't know. And today during the press conference, Michael Irvin's attorney came on, and he talked about it. He talked about how this is just an egregious overreaction, and Michael did nothing wrong, and you'll see that in the video. And he's calling upon Marriott to release the video and apologize to Michael Irvin. They had people at the press conference today who were witnesses, eyewitnesses, just dudes. Like there was one dude from Australia, and he was there. And I don't know what he was doing there. I don't even know if he was there with Michael, but he was there. And he said he described what he saw. And they saw nothing. They're like, yeah, nothing happened. And Michael just walked to the elevator. There was no incident. And then there was another dude who was in the bar at the hotel who was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And he had approached Michael Irvin. He tried to buy Michael Irvin a drink, and Michael Irvin came over and said to him, I appreciate the offer, but I got to be up early tomorrow for a TV thing, so I'm not drinking. And then the dude said, well, can I get a picture? And Michael Irvin was like, yeah. So they stepped outside the bar into the lobby of the hotel, posed for a picture, and that is when Michael engaged the other woman. The Philadelphia Eagles fan, who should, be predisposed to hating Michael Irvin, the Philadelphia Eagles fan not testified, but he said today at the press conference, I was standing right there. Nothing happened. Like, I don't understand what this is about. Release the video. Anyway, that's what's going on. So here, wait a second. This is a little piece of video from this. Here's Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin broke down. Michael Irvin broke down today crying. I don't know what the waterworks are all about, but one of the eyewitnesses were describing what they saw and how, they didn't see anything, basically. And here, this is Michael Irvin. We'll see him. Hopefully the sound will work. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. This is Michael Irvin from earlier today. Or from the Michael Irvin press conference. The voice, the disembodied voice that you're hearing is one of the eyewitnesses.
A woman had come around the corner, kind of met Michael at the corner. They had a very brief interaction that was, super, friendly, lots of laughter. And Michael went back to his room. I went back to my seat, and 2 days later, I read about the story that we're talking about now.
At any point in time, did you see anything that caused you concern, you thought was inappropriate? Mr. Irvin should have done that, just untoward. Did you see anything like that? Well, it's frozen Zoom. He is in Europe. Guys, if he comes back, I'll do it. Other than that, I think that concludes our press conference. These gentlemen have offered to take questions if you want to. We're not going to take questions based on the fact that we still have this current lawsuit going on. So I appreciate everybody showing up today.
Wait, let me say this, guys.
Okay.
You know, I kind of lost it just listening to Phil talk, because I'm struggling. This is what I struggle with. You know, you try to be an ambassador of the league, and also understand that God has blessed me and given me a platform, and try to touch people, try to raise people, try to lift people up. And I don't know, I met a lot of fans, but I've always tried to be good with people. You know, I'm struggling now saying, do I not talk to people? What do I do? You know, because of this kind of a situation, I know I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't do anything wrong, and I was trying to do everything right. So it's just, you know, though I say that, I gotta come back to this moment. Had I not said to these guys, you know what, you cool guys, let's go outside and take that picture, you know, then they wouldn't have been right there with me. And that would have been a moment that I've had alone, and I know nobody's going to listen to what I say. Nobody, still, at least Mary, I don't want to hear what we have to say. Don't want to hear what I have to say. Don't even care to share it. So, you know, I just got emotional thinking about it because I'm struggling with that, on what to do moving forward after I deal with all of this. That's all I want to say.
All right, so something very strange happened to me today while watching that. I, for the very first time, certainly as far as I can remember, felt empathy for Michael Irvin. I watched the whole press conference this morning. I don't know. I don't know what to think. There were enough people, believable people, who got on camera today in that press conference and said what they saw, and then begged essentially Marriott to allow the Irving camp to release the video. Marriott won't let them release the video. I think Marriott knows maybe they overreacted. Here's what I think might be going on now. I think that the video shows nothing. I think that it was erroneously reported in the early days, the day after, the first time I think it was erroneously reported that the ESPN people had seen the video. Here's what I think happened. I think that this girl, for whatever the motivation was, maybe she misinterpreted something, maybe she truly felt aggrieved, I don't know, whatever, she went immediately to her manager, who then immediately started checking the boxes. Call HR, make sure that there is a written, account of this, whatever it is, all of the corporate hoops that you got to jump through when this kind of thing happens nowadays. And I think at some point it got up, because the person in question was Michael Irvin, a high-profile individual, it immediately got to an executive level at the Marriott Corporation. And I think that's when someone at the Marriott Corporation may have reached out, someone in the executive level may have reached out to someone in the executive level of ESPN and said something like, hey, it's Bob from the club or whatever. And they said, look, man, one of your boys is acting a fool out here. He just created some huge dust up. You know how these stories get amplified. And I think that maybe somebody high up in ESPN said, bring Michael home. Just bring him. I think everybody overreacted. Now, why did they overreact? Because it's Michael Irvin. Because Michael Irvin has a long history of being a clown. Because I think it was erroneously reported that ESPN had seen the video. I don't think ESPN has seen the video. I don't think anybody has seen the video other than Michael Irvin's attorney. Michael Irvin's attorney, when he talked about seeing the video, he was like, they made him, the Marriott attorneys made Michael Irvin's attorney before they showed him the video. They made him empty his pockets. He couldn't have a phone. He couldn't have any. They were like super secure. And then Michael Irvin's attorney saw the video and he came out and he said, we should sue them for more. Let's go. Let's roll. That video is absurd. Let's release that video. Let's let the American public see why Marriott woke Michael Irvin in the middle of the night, ejected him from the hotel, caused ESPN, his employer, to now put a black mark next to him in his little file there in HR at ESPN. Whatever it was all an overreaction. And I have to tell you, I think it's based on the fact that Michael Irvin is a well-noted clown. That's why they overreacted. They assumed Michael Irvin was getting into some Michael Irvin nonsense. And maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't this time. Slap fighting is trending. Dana White's new sport, slap fighting. Oh my God, let that asteroid hit us now. Slap fighting is a sport where two dudes, I'm guessing highly unemployable, other than the sport of slap fighting, two dudes stand across from each other and they just slap each other in the face. Oh, people are already getting in line to say that. Okay, so you want to know what my thought on slap fighting is? Is it dangerous? Oh, probably. Oh my God. Have you seen the open-handed flush slaps that these people are taking? Could it be like a lot of people going, the CTE this is the worst for CTE. People are talking about CTE. That's the NFL disease where you keep getting hit in the face, the boxing disease. CTE, they're saying CTE. Yeah, totally. Probably CTE. Absolutely CTE. Big dummies. Big dummies just banging their head. Come on. Of course there's going to be some sort of, if you are like, I'm the 20-year grade of slap fighting, you're going to have a drool bucket. Of course. Look at what the entire sport is, to rattle the brain so that it shakes around in its little jar there, and for a split second you flash knockout. That's the whole goal. That is also, however, the whole goal of winning a boxing match by a KO, causing temporary brain damage. Let's call it what it is. You are trying to knock somebody out. That is temporary brain damage. You are shutting off their brain for a split second. Anyway, so people are criticizing slap fighting. It's dangerous. Yeah, it's real dangerous. You know what else it is? It's real stupid. It's real stupid. It's real dangerous. You know what else it is? Hysterical. It's hysterical. If these big dummies, this is how I feel about sports across the board, and I've always been very consistent about this. If a couple of big dummies want, look, I'm not going to pay $70 for a pay-per-view slap fight, okay? But if I'm walking around in Vegas and I got my big giant cocktail in my hand and my silly hat, and I'm looking at stuff, and over here they got a stage set up and two dudes are doing slap fighting, yeah, I'll stand there and I'll watch. You're damn right I will. If two big dumb goons want to do this for $150 or whatever the hell Dana White is paying them, because it can't be much more than that. These two big dumb gorillas want to stand there and slap each other in the face. I'm telling you, I'm an American first. And that's called liberty. That's called freedom. If I want, do you think that they're unaware that there could be some long-lasting consequences to having gigantic, roided-up dudes open-handed bitch slap them like 50 times across the face in a month? Do you think? Of course they know that. They know what they're getting into. It's always been my thought. It's always been my thing on steroids in baseball. You know what I want to see? I want these big, giant hippopotamus people to just be hitting like 900-foot home runs. I don't care. I don't care about the record. But the record books won't mean anything. They kind of will. We'll have a line of demarcation, before dudes were juicing and after dudes were juicing. I like the long ball. If some giant dude wants to just put his body through hell and pump it with toxins and all kinds of things so that he can hit a baseball a little bit quicker, I'm all for it. I don't care. I don't care. I mean, you know what else I know? If this dude wants to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do 6 miles of road work just to get his cardio and shit, I don't care about that either. I don't care what the dudes have to do to make the game more entertaining. Just make the game entertaining. So slap fighting is taking some shit from some people who are like, it needs to be bad because we need to step in for these fighters because they don't know that it's dangerous. They know it's dangerous. They know what they're doing. This is a thing. This is a league designed exclusively to take money from stupid people. That's all. Just like about 50% of the other things that we waste our money on in this world, they are specifically designed to separate money from the stupid. And you in America have a right to create something with the intent of separating money from the stupid. And that's what slap fighting is. So shut up with your, we should ban it. Nah, shut up. Tesla is trending. Tesla is trending because this is a funny one. Tesla's, are we still could I buy a Tesla? Like now, my rule about never being like an early adopter. Don't ever be an early adopter. You don't fly on any airplanes that have double digit numbers. Like you don't fly on flight 12. Right? You don't fly on flight 1. You definitely don't fly on flight 1, but you don't fly on flight 12. You fly on flight 1147, something like that. Anyway, I'm like that with everything. Like, I don't want first generation anything. And I know Tesla's been around now for about 10, 15 years, but are we there yet? You know what I mean? Because if we started flying in airplanes like around let's say in earnest, 1935. So let's say we started flying in airplanes in 1935. 1945, 1950. By 1950, would I feel comfortable? No. No. Like I say, guys, I don't think anybody should have ever felt comfortable flying in an airplane until at least the 1990s. I think that's how long it took. I think it probably took 40, 50 years of commercial air travel for them to figure out what kind of bolts don't break at 30,000 feet. Just a little shit. So by 1990, it was fine. Anyway, I'm not an early adopter. And if Tesla's been around now for about 15 years, and according to the latest story, steering wheels are falling off. So a whole batch of Teslas were shipped out to customers, also consumers. So a whole batch of Teslas were shipped out, and they didn't have a bolt that holds the steering wheel in place. They were all missing this bolt. So what would happen is the steering wheel would be put in place in like some sort of suction or friction would hold it, but it needs the bolt. And as people were driving their Teslas without the bolt, the suction and adhesive wore off, and they'd just be driving down the street and the wheel would come off. See? All right. If they're still forgetting to ship Teslas with steering wheel bolts, it ain't time for an electric vehicle yet. I'll wait another 5 years. Let somebody, they gotta perfect this shit. All right. Anyway, that's why Tesla's trending. Lunch lady, we got a lunch lady trending. A lunch lady in Connecticut is trending because apparently she was a sexy lunch lady having sex with some student. We always like to focus on these. Married Connecticut, is that what I said? Where did I say? Rhode Island? I don't know. Married Connecticut lunch lady allegedly sexually assaulted student sent nude images for months. Andy Rosafort, 31, worked in Quiet that. Andy Rosafort, 31, worked in New Fairfield School District when the alleged crimes took place. So she's married. She's a school lunch lady. And apparently she started sending texts to some 14-year-old boy. We'll never see the boy, but aren't you curious? Like, let me show you her. All right, let me show you her. I don't think we have any right to see the boy. I get it. He's 14 years old. I've got a 13-year-old. You ain't going to look at my boy either, right? In a creepy ass story like this. But it does make you wonder, because how handsome was this 14-year-old boy? Like, this woman, let me show you this woman. Let me show you her. All right. Can we do anything here? All right, I'm going to show you her. First of all, I ain't never but seen no lunch lady looking like this. This is not what lunch ladies looked like when I was in high school. Look at her. 31 years old, Andy Rosafort, 31, school lunch lady, Connecticut, having a months-long affair with a 14-year-old boy. He's got to be super handsome, right? Like maybe, I don't know. Because she's not there. She's actually an attractive woman. Lunch ladies did not look like this when I was in school. Lunch ladies were like, I mean, when I am thinking about the lunch ladies that I went to school with, that worked the school, like half of them, I don't even think were like mentally all there. Like I think they were like maybe day workers from some like halfway house or something. They certainly didn't look like this. Lunch ladies. Yes, I am saying that back in the 1980s, lunch ladies were not fuckable. Not at all. Not at all. But this woman may in fact be. I mean, not really because she's batshit crazy, but I'm saying just she's kind of attractive. She's kind of attractive, 31 years old. She's hooking up with a 14-year-old. And it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. I'm sorry. I know that everything's equal and no, but it's not the same thing. A 31-year-old teacher, or she's not even a teacher, she's a lunch lady. 31-year-old lunch lady hooking up with a 14-year-old boy. I'm sorry, but in my mind, is not the same thing, is not nearly as bad as a 31-year-old gym coach hooking up with a 14-year-old girl. I find that to be much worse. I know. Right? How do you figure that? Right? Like how do you rationalize that? Because it's not the same. A 14-year-old girl being taken advantage by a 31-year-old man, there is a power dynamic difference there. A 14-year-old boy being taken advantage of by a 31-year-old good-looking lunch lady, not the same thing. It's not the same thing. That 14-year-old, I don't know. We're moving on. I mean, didn't they used to make movies about teen boys hooking up with like older women? And wasn't that in those movies not seen as necessarily pedophilia or molestation on the part of the woman, but more of like an aspirational fantasy thing from the perspective of the boy? We weren't conditioned to think of that as a bad thing. That, a teen boy hooking up with an older Mrs. Robinson type. We even have a cultural label for it. A Mrs. Robinson. And yet here you go. Yesterday we were talking about Stanley Kubrick. We do have a term for it the other way. The other way, we call it a Lolita situation. And that's not good. That's dark. There's dark connotations with saying, "Oh, what's going on with you and your student?" A little bit of a Lolita situation. That's got dark connotations. Mrs. Robinson saying, "Oh, what are you having, a Mrs. Robinson affair?" That doesn't have the dark connotations. That doesn't. That's, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. And maybe we could talk about it as long as people weren't going to yell and scream and say really stupidly provocative things, unnecessarily provocative things. Mike Epps is trending. Do you guys like Mike Epps? I love Mike Epps. I think Mike Epps is so funny. What is Mike Epps famous for? I don't even know what Mike Epps is famous for. I just know I love his energy. Mike Epps is a comedian and an actor. I'm trying to think of what was he in. I don't know. I know one thing that he was in where I really liked him. Starz had a 30-minute original program. It was produced by LeBron James, but it was a half hour story about a young NBA basketball player in Atlanta who got drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, and he's a big star, and his family comes along with him. It's kind of like Entourage, but with an NBA vibe to it. And Mike Epps played his uncle, who was sort of like, always glomming on and going to the parties and the clubs. Mike Epps, very funny guy. Mike Epps is making news because he unfortunately forgot to unpack his pistol when he went through the airport. Oh my goodness, Mike Epps. Could happen to any of us. Happens all the time. Anyway, he was detained for a short period of time, not arrested. They did seize his gun, and they said they will send it back to him. He was in Indianapolis. He lives in Indianapolis, but he had returned, or he's from Indianapolis, but he had returned for a stint of appearances locally. Apparently, he's very popular there in his hometown. Nick Cannon is trending. Nick Cannon is trending right now. Nick Cannon is trending because people don't know if this is a joke or not. I don't know. Let's see here. Adam Reyna said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mike Epps was in Fridays. Yeah, that's God. I didn't think about that. That was so long ago, but I'm thinking of like more recently. Adam says next Friday, and white people know him from The Hangover. Was he in The Hangover? I don't know. He's just great in every little bit that he does. He's just a very funny guy. He's got great energy. I love his energy. Can't hurt him. Nick Cannon seems poised to have the last laugh when it comes to all the joking about his large family. Nick Cannon's got 13 kids. That's what this is all about. Cannon revealed late Monday that he is partnering with fellow comedian. What? Kevin Hart. Nick Cannon and Kevin Hart are not fellow comedians. Kevin Hart is one of the most successful and popular stand-up comedians of this era. Nick Cannon hosts The Voice. He's not fellow comedian. How dare you put Nick Cannon in the same comedic air as a guy as successful as Kevin Hart? That is ridiculous. Let's see. Cannon revealed late Monday that he is partnering with fellow comedian Kevin Hart for a game show titled Who's Having My Baby with Nick Cannon. Perfect branding. He knows what he's about. Nick Cannon knows that he is a no talent, and he is. What is Nick Cannon? Is he a singer? Is he an urban radio talk host? Is he a TV host? Is he a model? Wasn't he married to Mariah Carey? What is he, an actor? It says he's a comedian here. I don't know what the hell Nick Cannon is doing, but just as I did earlier in the show when we were celebrating the birth of Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, if this is true, I gave Alan Hale Jr. credit earlier for leaning into the skipper thing. He opened a bunch of seafood restaurants, called them Alan Hale's Boat Dock or something. I don't know, something like that. And he would sometimes be at his restaurants dressed as the skipper. And I applauded that for Alan Hale. He leaned into it. He knew what his brand was. And if this is in fact true that Nick Cannon is leaning in to his brand, which is having a whole bunch of kids, by creating a game show with Kevin Hart called Who's Having My Baby? Well, look, I appreciate somebody who understands how to exploit the brand. What else do we have here? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so I found this. This is not necessarily trending, but I found it on the Google Trends, and I thought this would be an interesting thing for us to wrap up the show with here today. So, somebody, who is this? We'll find out who this is. They basically broke down into dollars and cents who the most expensive actors, men and women. I don't think we can say actress anymore. I don't think actress is a word anymore. Anyway, men and women actors. They broke it down and they determined who makes the most money. Like, who is the highest paid? and they broke it down to per second. Like, this person makes this much per second every time they're on. And they do it based on screen time. Like, how much time were they on? How much did they make for this movie? And how much were they on screen? Now, Sandra Bullock comes in number one for 2023. Now, this has to do largely because of the film Bullet Train. Because remember, the criteria for this is you're not on camera. But, she wasn't on camera in Bullet Train. It was just her voice. She was on camera a couple of times. But, she got paid leading woman money, and we only saw her face in Bullet Train like 3 or 4 times. So that's why she's in the top spot. How much is your time worth in dollars and cents? Obviously, Hollywood actors make a lot of money, more than the average person. But a new survey finds some stars actually make more in a single second than many people do in an entire year. While she's definitely a member of the A-list, it may surprise you to find out that Academy Award-winning actress Sandra Bullock tops the list of actors in Oscar-worthy movies in terms of her worth per second. According to a study commissioned by, it's legit because it was commissioned by onlinecasinos.com.uk. Bullock is worth nearly $95,000 for every second that she appears on screen. $95,000 per second on screen. That's amazing. Among her many credits, Bullock took home the Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role for her work in the 2010 The Blind Side. Sir Ian McKellen comes in second. Who's he? Sir Ian McKellen. Who does he play? Who's he famous for playing? Is he from Harry Potter? I think he is. Sir Ian McKellen comes in second with a box office worth of just over $90,000 per second that he appears on screen. After these two A-listers, the drop-off is pretty significant. Kate Winslet comes in third, Whoopi Goldberg comes in fourth, and Dustin Hoffman comes in fifth, rounding out the top five. However, the study estimates their worth at around $70,000 per second when they appear on screen in a nominated film. At the opposite end of the scale, screen greats Robert De Niro and Tom Cruise rank 48th and 49th, respectively, compiling just over $26,000 per second of screen time. According to the study's metrics, perhaps they need to talk to their agents. Oh, how funny. That's hysterical. All right, there you go. That's all I got prepared for you today. Let's jump into the trends like we like to do over there on the Twitter box and see what's happening right now. By the way, tip the show. If you want to support the show and you can't support the show, that would be great. We do Cash App, we do Venmo. We leave that up for the entire show just in case you're so moved. You want to help continue with these shows' productions, it would be greatly appreciated. These shows exist and run at your kindness. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find. Syracuse is trending. You getting excited for March Madness? I'm kind of getting excited for March Madness. This is the time of the year where I don't follow college basketball at all until like last weekend. That's now I'm starting to watch. Kentucky, Purdue. It's all very exciting. Okay, so I don't know. Nothing else here. I got nothing. Yeah, there's nothing else happening. All right, that's going to do it, folks. We'll be back tonight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for Pugs and Parker proudly present Pillow Talk with... Hold on. Parker sent me a... Hold on. Parker sent me a... All right, Parker says tonight on Pugs and Parker... I don't know how to read this. He says, Jagger tonight at 9. Hey, how awesome will that be? That'll be amazing. Jagger, the morning guy, coming on the show. We'll interview him about the Live 105.3 project. But here's the thing. Like, there's not a question mark. Like, if it said Jagger tonight at 9, there would be a question mark. But there's not a question mark. So it sounds like I'm going to officially go ahead and say that James Parker has booked Jagger for tonight's Pugs and Parker show at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. Oh, I got a lot of prepping to do now. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. We'll find out exactly what Jagger's getting into. We'll get him to talk about how he came over to Live 105.3. He's one of my he's one of the people who I have worked with who I didn't necessarily become friendly with. Like, Jagger and I didn't become friends, but I greatly admired him. I'm a great admirer of Jagger and all that he's been able to do with his career. I mean, we just, I guess, I don't know, we didn't hang out or anything like that. That'll be fun. Because you know what? And I think that this is important because we have talked to a lot of people over the course of the last couple of weeks doing interviews for this Live 105.3, Who Killed Live 105.3, the podcast project. And I think that I think Jagger is going to offer us a fresh perspective from a different perch. He was in a different position. That'll be good. That's very exciting. All right, very exciting for Jagger to join us tonight. I'm saying because of the way Parker phrased this, he did. There was no question mark, so it wasn't like maybe Jagger tonight. Like that would be a hint that I should try and get Jagger. No, there was no question mark. It said Jagger tonight at 9. No question mark. That tells me that James Parker, the can-do man, the handsome Frankenstein from Bug Tussle, West Texas, actually he's from East Texas, came through with a good guest tonight. How very exciting. All right, so we've got that to look forward to. Tip the show if you can. We'd love that. We appreciate y'all. We'll see you tonight at 9 o'clock for Pugs and Parker right here on the Radio Misfits podcast platform. The best is yet to come. I have found a different way, so baffling to some. I can smile a little now. Things are going good. I always had to be on guard. That is understood. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest. I am on a never-ending quest. What do you fucking tip? $5, little motherfucker.